Hey, welcome my galactic brothers and sisters and my earth brothers and sisters and planetary brothers and sisters. Appreciate you showing up each and every day and watching these videos about the esoteric and the cosmos and universe. Appreciate you all showing up if you're new to this channel. It is about the esoteric. If you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to just hang out for this session. And today we're learning about mediumship. And I've had experiences with mediumship, and to define again, I don't want to assume everyone knows what mediumship is. Mediumship in one sense is being in the middle of something. Pyramid is fire in the middle, right? The word pyramid means fire in the middle. You are the fire in the middle. You are a energy producing biomechanical, chemical, and electrical being. And that entails a signature, a unique frequency. This is what your soul operates at, is this unique frequency. And understanding and then empowering your unique frequency then entitles you to get out there and present yourself to the universe. You can make communications. You can have divine communications, ancestral communications, interdimensional communications. It all depends on your ability to be able to produce a strong, confident signal. Right? And this is taking what is within you, your cells within your body, your confidence, your mind, your heart, being open and being open-hearted and not a defended heart. And the most important thing too is taking responsibilities for those thoughts, actions, and emotions. Right? And this is what electrical theology is all about: is just getting you a different perspective. I grew up in the church, and I appreciated the church and all that it has provided, and still provides me in a way. As a missionary, for me it's different because as a missionary, I'm not a traditional Christian missionary, although I am of Christ's mind, but I'm not a Christian, right? As Buddha or one of them said, I forgot who said it, but I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. And it's nothing against any one sect of religion. It's the followers. The followers have to follow for a time until they understand that they can stand on their own 2 feet, or their own consciousness, and be able then to communicate. And this is what the Reformation was all about. It's about reforming ions. Ions are energy. And so new energy is coming into us as I'm speaking right now, and it's asking us to transform it into a new perspective, not an old perspective. Now, how do I know some of this stuff? Well, I've been doing this stuff since I was about 4 years old. And for about 5 decades or more now. And my background is in a whole lot of different stuff, but today it's just focused on mediumship. I've been communicating with beings, with galactic. They all have their names and titles, which at this point is irrelevant. Later on we'll get into understanding who's in what arena, right? Or who's in what country, a galactic country, if you will. And being able to, and the only reason we want to know this is so that we can differentiate or understand who it is we're communicating with, right? If you're just getting random people calling you on your phone right now, not telling you who they are or where they're from, it's like, okay, what do you want, right? And what background do you have? Why am I listening to you? So each one of these identifiers, or these galactic neighbors or signatures or frequencies, it's all about who is it you're communicating with, and for what reason, and how does it serve you here on this planet, right? And how can they serve you over there? Serve is just an anagram for verse. So how can we verse each other, right? We want to converse. We want to have a conversation. We want to converse or be able to transmit back and forth ions or energy, right? Nothing spooky about it. It's just honing in and tuning into different frequencies other than your own. Some are higher than yours, some are lower than yours, some are right in the middle. And then mediumship is the Goldilocks, if you will. If you can tap into that one, you can tap into the higher, communicate with those on a higher frequency and those on lower frequencies, or different band widths. All right? To communicate, there's certain intricacies, or there's certain protocols by understanding who you're talking to, just so that when you go back and talk or contact the same entities or beings or whatever you want to call them, angels, I don't care, is can you differentiate? Normally you can tune in and listen to their tones or the way they speak or communicate and know who they are right away, just as if your family members called up or your friends called up, you know who it is just by their voice. But sometimes you pick up the phone and it sounds like somebody else, right? You think you're talking to the son, but you're talking to the father, right? Because those frequencies start honing in as that child gets older. And so here, understanding who we're talking to and how to recall, if you will, that word re and call, to recall, dial again this entity, we want to know how we can consistently talk to the same beings instead of just having randomness, unless you want randomness, right? So there's a lot of details and intricacies about communicating, but we don't want to get overwhelmed, and we don't want to get it all serious. You can actually have some fun conversations out there, guys and gals and beings out there. So today we're just going to briefly run through mediumship. Now we did show this before, but I'm just going to breeze through the first one. This is just a pictorial of like the 9 realms of heaven. And so mediumship is about, today we're just going to focus on the afterlife. All right? The afterlife, what comes after this life? Well, if we're going to an afterlife and we're in this life, that means we came in some before life, right? Or past life, you may want to call them. I don't look at them as reincarnation. I look at them as reiteration. We just reiterate, right? We just reform. And that's what this reformation is about, and this new energy is coming in, right? And I call this paramediumship because, again, fire in the middle. You're the medium, right? Fire in the middle, medium. And so by understanding right now, we'll get into the bigger ships and the smaller ships, but understanding the middle first helps us understand what's above and below us. And we'll understand what's behind or in front of us, right? In a linear sense, right? And again, we want to understand that this is dimensional communication. It's diamonds, right? Diamonds, energy. So we'll briefly touch on the history like we did before, afterlife, the colors, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, is the colors and the transmitters and receivers. Now, we talked about before that there's a lot more dead people than there are alive people, right? If you can go back and look at my original, go back and look at the original video or the intro video to mediumship, we went over some of this stuff. So I'm just going to fast forward where we left off, and then here's where I wanted to sort of, where we even know mediumship from, or that word. Yes, it goes back till tribal days and early days, and they had this ability, but I'm just going to bring it into modern days. We want to start between the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th century. And so there's what's called the Theosophy movement, and it was created by Madame Blavatsky. Now, Madame Blavatsky was a Russian, and she trained with a lot of the Hindus and the gurus up in the mountains. She's a brilliant translator of this ancient text, and she was trained under them. To give you a brief version of her story, y'all can go look her up. And she had a handful of students like Alcott and others. Y'all can look her up again. I'm not going to go over that. Anyone can do this history. But look at who her students were, and they all wrote books. And they were all brilliant writers and thinkers. And they were all into this movement. Now, what started catching on during the century was the psychic and spiritualist movement. The global region movement influenced figures like Gandhi, right? Thomas Edison, Arthur Conan Doyle. And there's a whole host, guys. I mean, I can keep going on, but I'm just giving you a brief history. So I do encourage you to go study Madame Blavatsky and all her students, and you'll be amazed. And they influence every writer from Longfellow to a host of authors. Again, too many to go through, guys. Look at all the people who were influenced by her and her movement. And it eventually came over into New York, and that's where a lot of the mediumship, and this is sort of where the psychic world sort of split in their scientific studies, in the paranormal, parapsychology, and then there's that's sort of the investigative side, and then there's sort of the more mediumship side, and seances and stuff like that. And she herself was a master priest, delivered psychic messages all the time. Again, she influenced every person you can even imagine in movies, finance, arts, cinema. There wasn't a person that she didn't touch during that time, and you've probably been, and some of your favorite writers, movies, authors, whatever, it has been influenced by her. And a lot of other spiritual movements. So yeah, study her, guys. To basically give you just a brief history over here. Spiritualism, again, this all came out of this movement. And it's in New York in 1840s. All classes of society felt the magnetic charm. Even the profile celebrities like Cornelius Vanderbilt. There's a Biltmore House for those who live in North Carolina. Elizabeth Browning, who loved her work. Frederick Douglass, Horace Greeley, Washington Irving, James Fenimore Cooper, right? Longfellow we mentioned. Harriet Beecher Stowe. Again, I was going to list a whole bunch here, but it's just too many. It's hundreds of authors and people who have been influenced by hers, and those that influence other religious movements, and Unitarianism, Universalism, so on and so forth. At least one dignitary, Benjamin Franklin, who had been dead for several years, claimed to come through the Fox sisters. And if you ever study history of this, the Fox sisters were legitimate. Nobody could debunk them. For the most part. A lot of people did get debunked, which I'm glad they do. So there's a lot of charlatans in this world. There's true mediums, and then there's sort of paperback mediums. They've just read the book, but really don't have the ability, or they're really good at reading facial clues and stuff, or cold calls, or where they just mention a name, like I'm picking up a name that starts with C or J. Well, those are the two most common letters in our alphabet for names. Right, so if you even get close, oh yeah, I'm picking up a C. Sure, that's Charlie. Oh, I got a Charlie. Everyone's got a Charlie, right? Or Charles or Chuck, and their families. So there's a lot of scams. So my goal is to give the legitimacy behind this, which is science-based, not mythological-based. Even though mythology has a base in science, right? We just don't understand it. We talked about some of the Valhalla, which is an afterlife, the ferryman that takes you over the river Styx. You put 2 tokens on your eyeballs, and then that gets you into the other side. You have the Golden Gate, Silver Gate we've talked about, the Elysian Field, Summerland, Purgatory. And again, these are all states of consciousness, right? But here's where we want to focus today, is understanding red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, and magenta, and then eventually clear, or the white light. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, these are the spectrums of color, right? Color is the rainbows, right? Because we live in the visible light spectrum. And then you have the pure white light. And here's all the work I've done over the decades. I've only seen when people crossed over, and I've been with many people as they crossed over, is that in my work with hospice and a few other religions and whatnot to help people cross over and help the families deal with the crossing over and understanding the crossing over. That's why it's not unusual for when someone does cross over, all the loved ones are there, and then they're there for hours, and then they leave to go get lunch or coffee or something, and come back and the person died. Because when these realms open up, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, when these realms open up, they're an octave or two higher than what we're used to living in this spectrum. So when you open up to that other side, that energy will amplify whatever you are, just like alcohol will amplify. If you're mad, you're going to be even madder. Like it's going to be intense. Right? Pyramid, this energy that opens up, this pyramid is 10 times, power of 10. Right? A pyra of 10. And so a lot of the people who cross over, they have about a 72-hour window that they can cross over. And a lot of times when we think they're getting better, and they're crystal clear and they're alert, right? That's normally the 72-hour window, because to cross over into one of these realms, because there's more people dying sort of than there are being born right now, and the frequencies get overwhelmed, and so people like me and others help people cross over, and then we're able to assist them, but there's only so many of us, and that's why I'm teaching this class, is so that some of y'all can become legitimate mediums to help other people cross over, take them from this life into the other life. Again, the medium, right? We're the interloper. We can take someone's crossing over and then pass them over to the other side, right? So we're again in the middle. But keep in mind that a lot of these people cross over at their time. because they know when they start getting a glimpse of the other side, when they start talking to Uncle Joe who hasn't been around for 50 years, well, Uncle Joe's on the other side, and then giving them a preview of what's about to happen. And so it's sort of advised that not many people be in the room unless that person can handle when that other side opens up and that energy comes at them. If someone's in a loving space, it's fine. But if someone still has guilt or unfinished business with that person crossing over, it's only going to amplify it. So the person crossing over doesn't want those people in the room, right? It's for their own safety, if you will, or their own sound mind. Now, when they cross over, there's different heavens, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. There's more heavens within heavens within heavens. 7 within 7 within 7. There's 21. But let's keep it simple for right now. Right? We'll come into here. So when people cross over, they don't go into just the white light. Again, I've been doing this for 40-something years, and I've only seen, over 50 years, and I've only seen maybe one person or one being cross over directly into the light, right? We have it up here on the top, the light. Most people here on Earth are here for, because they're missing ions. That's my mission as a missionary, to help people gather, extract, and experience and understand what it is they need to understand. And once they understand it, they can extract that energy and then integrate it into their beingness, which then allows them to cross over to a higher realm. Right? So people just don't cross over into the white light. Right? What they do is they cross over into a red light or a yellow light or an orange light, blue, green, indigo, violet light. And again, we're keeping this simple. We're just keeping the 7 or 8 or 9 here right now. Now, understanding that to get into these verses, these frequencies, to go through the portals, the gateways to get into these higher heavens, there's also the inverse. Still have unfinished business, then you may have to roam a while back into these frequencies on Earth. So the goal of being on this planet or in this plane is to elevate or graduate, right, by initiation through these realms of frequencies. And this is why you're here, is to go through these realms, right? And we talked about the realms and realms of expanding consciousness on Wednesdays or Thursdays, I think it is. Monday, to give a recap, is Monday's divine messages. Tuesday is mediumship. Wednesday is tarot. Thursday is realms of expanding consciousness and the grid. And Friday is how to manifest. So we take all this energy and manifest it. But we got to understand how to open up, bring the energy to us. So the same thing here, we're helping other people take their energy and move on to these frequencies once they unzip from this ape suit. Right? So when you cross over, you'll go into a like light. Right? Depending on what kind of work you did here, however open you were, right? How willing you were to take responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and emotions will then graduate you up. If you don't do the work, then when you go into a heaven, you'll go into a like heaven. So if you came in as a red, didn't do the work and all that good stuff, and blamed everyone for your poor pity me stories. And again, people have them. I'm not judging the story, but if they don't graduate beyond that, then they'll come back and redo the story again. Now, that being said, in the frequency of red, there's 7 heavens. Again, 7 within 7 within 7. And so within red is orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, right? So we have 7 steps. We talk about the realms of expanding consciousness. So in mediumship, you can get into red, right? You're in the red realm, but you got 7 realms within the red, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So if you do come back, odds are where you started at red, you're going to go into, when you come back or cross over, you'll be able to go into red, orange, right? Macro red, minor orange, heaven. And so once you go through all these stages or these gates, these portals or frequency adaptations, right? 9 volt to 110 and up. This is what you're doing. You're just increasing the frequency to be able to then transmit and receive energy or take in more consciousness. Right? And this again is that, or Godness, being able to express itself and come through us and then create with us. Make sense? So each of these are heavens. And we'll get in later how I know who it is when who it is coming in, or from what frequency. Now again, we're talking ancestors today, but when it gets into universal grids and stuff like that, yeah, they have their people who die or their beings who die. And there's heavens to each one of those planets and beings and dimensions. They each have their own heavens, or where they unzip, recalibrate, and come back into a shell. Now, I know this may get complicated, so hopefully you're hanging in there with me, and I appreciate you hanging in there, and I encourage you to keep going on with me here. Is that okay? All right, guys, appreciate it. So let's keep going. So if someone crosses over into the indigo, indigos then can communicate with anyone below them, right? Because they've already done their work. It doesn't mean that they necessarily can communicate yet fully with the magentas or the indigo heavens, or frequencies or radio stations, right? Because they haven't learned, they haven't adapted to that frequency. Right? If you want to go into inner Earth, you have to adapt to the frequencies. There's no piece of machinery that can drill into inner Earth. It may be, there's 5 or 6 projects around the world trying to drill as deep as they can. Russia, Germany, China, America, we've all see who can dig into the middle of the Earth. But as they started drilling more and more and more, their machines won't work, right? Because it's a different frequency. This is a different frequency. Inner Earth has a different frequency than outer Earth. There's 7 layers to Earth, right? There's 7 heavens within Earth, right? That's another story for another time, but let's just keep going. So any of these, orange, green, indigo, any of these can be mediums. So if I'm a green, I can be a medium between yellow and indigo. I can go one up, one down, 1 octave up, 1 octave down. If I'm working and I'm at the indigo, let's say I'm in an indigo, within indigo being the macro, and then we're within blue within indigo, minor, then we're getting closer to the violets, right? So therefore, I'm beginning as a green. I can touch into the blues and the indigos and the violets, right? As I'm doing my work, the higher I go, the more I'm starting to tap into the next realm, or the next major frequency or macro frequency. So I can tap into them a little bit, and that's the goal, is to tap into them a little bit to get used to their frequency, so it doesn't overwhelm you or drain your physical ape suit too much here on Earth, right? And we've been talking about this, ascending up the cosmic or universal elevator we practiced last week, right? That was on manifesting, I believe. I double checked that. But anyway, so, and again, all that I'm showing you here is in the inverse, or what some people may call hell. It's just, these guys, they start off as red, but they got lower, 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 lower. So it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So you basically have the 9 gates of hell. Right? And again, we're just dealing with 7, but it's 7, 8, or 9. I'm just not going to draw it all out. So you have the 9 gates of hell. Again, gates. As you work your way out of hell, and working your way out of hell is just cleansing your light, right? Your beingness, right? You piled on all this. We'll call it, I don't call it karmic debt. It's just stickiness, or because you are magnetic, you're electromagnetic, so you attracted a lot of debris, conscious debris, along your travels through your lifetimes. And so when you're ready to cross over, let's say you unzip up here in the shell, then you're going to have to go here. If you haven't done the work here, then you got to go down here to go through that cosmic car wash that cleanses your soul, right? And so once your soul is cleansed, then and again, if you have multiple layers that have to be cleansed, then it's going to take you a while to get out of hell. Again, time is irrelevant, but you get my point. You got to go through the same initiation steps. You got to initiate to get that energy cleansed up. And that's getting yourself back to that. That is that cosmic car wash. Right? So you have this purgatory that's in between these two worlds, or limbo. Right? You don't go up or down, you're just stuck there because your consciousness still thinks you're alive. And hell helps you release yourself of that consciousness that still thinks you have a body, or that what you experienced that was real in the physical plane is not now real in the spiritual planes, right? And eventually these two come together. They're always together. I'm just separating them. This is a spiraling atom. This is spirally. This is our second stage on the tarot, right, or the universal grid. So you have the magician or the magi, and then you have inspiration, or muse, or high priestess. This is spirit, or the high priestess, or inspiration is just inspiring ions, or just spinning energy. Why people, the therapeutic side of this is that when people cross over relative issues that affect our DNA here, that can affect our loved ones on the other side, or their energy, that if they didn't graduate or do their work here, then they're on the other side, then that energy in the DNA is still connected to the person here on Earth, so this person is going to also feel that issue within them even more, because the person on the other side that still has that genetic link aren't dealing with their issue on the other side. But again, it's an octave higher, so it's going to be amplified up an octave. So the person on Earth is going to even feel their issues within that same sense, right? If they were narcissists, if they were, I don't want to give titles, but basically if people had addictions, then that addiction is going to be felt even stronger after that person dies. They can call it grief or whatever they want to call it, but it's just that everything's being amplified because the person on the other side didn't do their work. So as a medium, people come to see me, I contact them on the other side, we work with what their issues were, and once we free it from them on the other side, and they understand it, because that's part of the mediumship, is helping them cross over to a higher heaven or a higher frequency. And then being able to do that, I'm then able then to help this person, because they'll feel better, because once the other person on the other side clears their stuff, then it clears it in this person on Earth. Now, the opposite can be said is that the person who still has an issue here with the person on the other side won't go up to a higher realm or a higher frequency, because they know if they do, it's going to cause more damage, if you will, to the person still here on Earth. So then as a medium, I can tap into the ancestors and say, hey, what's going on with this person? You got any information that will help? So I'll download that information, and then I can present that information to my client, and then we can work through whatever that issue is by reframing it, looking at it from a new perspective. And once that person clears it within them, it then clears it, if you will, on the person on the other side. And so at that time, because they were sort of anchored down by choice, once that energy is freed, then that person easily shoots up. And a lot of times, I'll see them shoot up 2 or 3 lights, right? Because they were willing to stay there and let that person here on Earth still work out their problem. And that's sort of draining on the other side, because it is a thick, it's a weight, right? And the other side is light, right? Here we drive cars, on the other side they travel in air balloons, if you will. It's a lighter travel, right? And claiming back your light's a big one. We'll get into that to another time. But let me briefly show you, and then we'll end this video up here. And the way I'm able to know who's coming in, and feel free to copy this chart, just give me some credit. The copyright's over here. You're more than welcome to use this chart. Just, again, like I say, give credit. This is the ancestral. So if a client's in front of me, or if I'm doing something across town or in another country with someone, I still see this, because everything's within that universal grid or blueprint we talk about, right? So if a person's in front of me, again, same if someone's on the other side, I'm still doing this on the other side, right? But I'm giving you a picture. And again, this is just a general rule. It switches as they go up in higher frequency. So I'm just giving you an ancestral one, guys. Not galactic, not etheric, just ancestral. This is their blood and bones, that relatives that cross over to the other side, or close friends, right? Or even animals. So if that client's sitting in front of me, over their right shoulder is going to be their father's side of the family, right? Father's side of the family. So if I see a light, and again, the lights come in, it'll tell me where they're coming from, what heaven, what spectrum, what realm, right? But since it's ancestors, we'll just keep it to realm, or into heavens right now. So if a energy ball of light comes in, or I get a conscious pickup, I can feel what color they are, right? Some of y'all, everyone sees things different, feels things different, but if you feel the energy, or your eyes just naturally go up above their head, if my client's sitting in front of me and up to their right and above their head, that's going to be the grandparent or the grandfather on that father's side. That makes sense? So the grandfather on the grandfather's side. And then the mother is on the left side, right? So your shoulder or above your head area is going to be your father, and anything above there, if it's really high and at a distance, that's 5, 6 generations away. I can get people from 7 generations and say, hey, they're going to be way out here when they come, or they're very distant, which means it can be that the father and the son were distant here on earth. They weren't close. So however they show up, if they're really super close, I know that it was a passing, probably a recent passing within just a couple weeks, months, or a year. If they're out here and hanging around, it's probably been about 1 year to 5 years. If I still feel that it's on this level here, or top of the head, but way out here, it's going to tell me that the father and the son weren't close, right? And again, the grandparents, great-grandparents will be up here, but they'll be close. You know what I'm saying? If that family member was close, it's going to be close. But if they weren't, they're going to be way out here, or they weren't around at all. Mother's side, same thing, but it's going to be on the mother's side of the family, the grandmother and grandfather, right? Every parent has 2 parents. Yeah. But this is a chart we'll go over next time, but I just wanted to give you a preview of what we will be going over. And this is going to help those who want to do mediumship really hone in on who it is. Again, we started this video off with being able to identify. Right now it's irrelevant, but when we want to continually go back and do this work in different realms, again, this is just ancestry. Right? If you want to know who you're talking to, Uncle Jane, Bobby, Uncle Joe, whoever, we need to sort of have an idea instead of trying to guess and burn up all of our electrical energy. Once we have this chart down, then we know who we're talking to immediately. Right? And we can spend more time and get more in-depth information. Right? But again, if you're doing mediumship, true mediumship, then you only have so much time for your safety of this ape suit, this flesh bag, to do this realm. You can't stay in there for hours, right? It will burn this suit up. You can't eat enough nutrients to repair the body, right? But if we can get more information by understanding this basic diagram I created, it's going to help out, all right? And we'll go over the details and all what this means on our next video. So if you're new to this channel and you like this, definitely subscribe, tell your friends, share, all that good stuff. If it's a little overwhelming, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you liked about it, what you don't like about it, right? Because I'm just here to present information, and I want to make sure that I'm presenting it in the way in which y'all understand it and in which makes sense to you, and that it's useful to you, all right? I will be having in-depth classes on this. They will be paid ones on my Patreon or whichever one I choose to use, where we go in depth to all this stuff, and then I'll practice with you on live chats and whatnot. But that's down the road. We just got to get the basics right now. So if you're one of my galactic brothers and sisters from the heavens or the earth, I appreciate you showing up too and hanging out with me and watching these videos. I love each and every one of you, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.